one day I will be able to get on the technology right away. But in all honesty, as part of mental health, that's a reality. Mornings can be hard for people who have a mental illness because our medications make us sleepy, and morning motivation is not easy. So I'm just gonna celebrate that it's 10:04 and I'm dressed. I was gonna put makeup on and stuff, but when I come up north, I do 8K run, and I'm probably gonna do that tonight. I did it last night. It's nice because it's cooler night. So anyway, I'm just gonna shine into the chat so that I can say hello. So grab your water, grab your coffee. This will only take me a second. Yo. And there. So, today the computer says it's the 6th of June. Holy cow, it's June. I thought it would be valuable to talk about romantic relationships. You know, with quarantine and stuff, it's difficult. If you're here, say hi in the chat. If you have any questions, and you don't want anyone to know questions, you're welcome to private message me on Facebook under Stephanie Brown. Where to begin? I am going to first say, if this is your first visit to my channel, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. If you're going to watch this on the replay, hit replay and then I'll know. So since I'm 45 now, and I wear bifocals. Like, what? So in order to be able to read to you what I want to share with you today. So I'm going to just quickly grab timer, because being bipolar personally, I'm not shy at talking, but I really want to get down to some real stuff today. We're going to be about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. I want you to think, while I'm doing this, what your relationships are like. There we go. Right now in quarantine. So I started this channel because my doctor, my psychiatrist, suggested, and the CMA, the Canadian Mental Health Association branch in my city, said that there isn't a lot of support, peer support for people with bipolar. So I just felt inspired to do something about it. Here are some things for you to know. When you're getting into a relationship with someone who has bipolar or any mental illness, they may be the most charismatic, fun, outgoing, interesting people you've ever met. And you fall head over heels. And I explain to people that, like, if I could explain it to you, some of the time we've learned, I've learned, maybe if you have a mental illness, you can relate. I've learned how to make people laugh, how to make people feel more comfortable, just all these things because of my illness that I'm trying to hide from you. I want to say that if someone tells you, listen, I have major depression, I am bipolar, I am schizophrenic, you need to really learn what these illnesses are. I'm Asperger's. That's autism. I stuttered when I said that because there's a woman that I really respect, and she hates the word high functioning because has Asperger's. So I'm still educating myself. But when being bipolar, and you approach me to date me, and I explain to you, like, I can't I can't be more straight when I've explained it to people, and they're just like, oh no, it's fine. And then we start having problems because they don't understand what I'm going through. You need to listen if someone says what they have. You need to go make sure your own self-care as someone who does not have the illness needs to get self-care on, is this something that I'm willing to handle, right? Is this something that I can handle? Because basically I've said to people, Barbie comes with lots of issues. And I'm just making a joke, but I actually said that. And, so that's my first number one point. If you are going to date someone who identifies as having a mental illness, now speaking to just relationships in quarantine, I've said it in the last video, some of you don't have the tools that I've always had to have because you're spending 24/7 with the same people in the house at all times. So, bipolar or not, this is what we're working on, is that women need to be loved and men need to be respected. Now, you can disagree with that, but there's a really cool book by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. I can't say his name. This book. And if I say to Joe, I really respect you for that, and I really respect how you take care of everything and everybody, he appreciates that and takes that as love. But if he says I love you and does something loving, like bring me coffee or whatever, that's loving. Another book I would recommend reading as a couple is The 5 Love Languages. And I really apologize to you as the author because it's not coming to me at this time, but you can look up the author is and order that book. Everyone has different love languages. So you really have to pay attention at this time in quarantine how you're treating each other. I live right now with my 2 adult sons. And if I mommy them, which is really wrong because they're men, I shouldn't be nagging them. If I do see them feeling disrespected as men, if I talk in a condescending or, so when did you plan on doing the dishes, in a snotty, disrespectful way, I get back really unloving comments. Not in the way of romantic, but just like, duh, gross. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if I were to say, you know, when are you gonna have when can you have the time to do the dishes? Because we're all learning how to live together. Because my sons got laid off during quarantine, so they're with us. They will say, I'll do it today at 3, you know. They, if I'm snotty about it, they're unloving towards me. So men really love to be respected and tell them you're thankful and you respect for them for what they're doing. If you don't, he won't love you, as in this book says, if you don't respect him. And he calls it the crazy wheel. And someone has to get off and be the bigger person and go, listen. For example, Joe, I'm sorry I said that way. That was really disrespectful. I didn't need to act like that, you know? And then here he says, I'm sorry, that was unloving. And one thing you can say to each other in quarantine right now, Dr. Emerson says, is, was that to your wife? Was that unloving, what I just said? That was disrespectful, what you just said to me. Was I unloving in some way? And then vice versa. Was that disrespectful, what I just said? Because what you just said to me, I felt was unloving. And it just keeps the conversation going. So that's, I really, you can think, what a bunch of malarkey, but it actually is effective. It's effective. Women, the doctor says in the book that women try to get their men, their husbands, to love them by loving them. Of course I love Joe, but he would feel much more loved if I was respectful. So that's kind of a tough one to wrap your head around. It's a message I heard like 8 years ago, and I'm still wrapping my head around it. And if you want your relationship to work, there's a point where it's not about what's fair, it's about what you want results for, you know? So that's, and you being in quarantine, you have to do self-care. So for example, speaking now specifically to having a mental illness, if your partner identifies as having a mental illness, then there's something called, excuse me, this is what happens to my brain. There's something called, I'm sorry, I've lost it. See, that happens. And that's a symptom. And people say, well, that happens to me. in mid-sentence losing what I was thinking. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but basically, hopefully it will come to me that you need to understand what upsets your partner who is fighting the illness. You need to learn, see, I'm stuck here because I'm trying to get the word. And this is actually not great that it's happening right on camera, but it shows you an example. If you don't have the illness and you're trying to have a conversation with me and I lose what we're saying, that can become very frustrating. These are some things you just have to accept, or you will always be unhappy. So learning how you can help your partner with the illness. I've shared a few things. So helping your partner have a routine, supporting their routine is good. And knowing right from the start every new day that I don't mean to annoy you. But here's the thing. If you're not compassionate towards my disability, I'm going to be angry and frustrated, and then I'm gonna, if I'm not being mature in that moment, which none of us are perfect, I might say something because I'm ticked off with you that you're not being compassionate. So if you choose to be in a relationship with someone with a mental illness, you as the person going into the dating relationship, do not think you can change them. And be aware that there will be signs in the relationship. You will, if you become committed in that relationship, potentially become completely, utterly fed up, annoyed that I get to say, I'm sorry, that's my illness. You know, me as the person in the relationship has to take responsibility for everything. If this is you, if you're me in the relationship, you have to do everything in your power to read books, to see your psychiatrist, to take your medications, to be mindful of what triggers you, okay? To learn how to walk through your symptoms and causing the least amount of harm to the people around you. When I put myself under pressure, I become symptomatic. Therefore, it is my job to become mindful of the pressure I put myself under, which is usually for no good reason. It's me just trying to prove something when I don't need to. And it causes a lot of turmoil in my relationship when I put myself under pressure. So, I really recommend, again, the Love and Respect book. As a woman, you can't say to your husband, if he's working a lot because he's trying to pay the bills, which right now is a different thing because we're in quarantine. But if he's it is draining out there right now. If you are working like I am working, it's draining out there right now because it's just this weird, I call it COVID brain. It's just weird feeling of everyone's like, I'm working, am I okay? Am I safe? On top of doing the job and then on top of my disability. So have some compassion right now. Everyone needs to have some compassion for the, if it, and in these is in 2010, most couples are both working. So you need to, communication is key. Here's your words. I think I'm going to say it every time because in the heat of the moment of events, we don't remember these things. And the best thing I did was write stuff on a cue card. And I carried the cue card with me everywhere. And so saying, I feel because, okay? I'm a social service worker graduate from Fanshawe. I have some educated background to be able to advise you in that degree 100% outside of my lived experience. I feel blank because blank, okay? And it takes two to tango is that old saying, and it's true. Take this time to really enjoy the people in your family, even though you're seeing them all the time. I was just saying to my son the other day, who's 22, he went and helped me do deliveries for my granola. Check out livinglivegranola.ca. That's what I do for a living. Drop your email in, you'll get free stuff. I said I cherish this time that I have with you because one day you're going to have grass to cut, house to take care of, and kids and wife and all that stuff. And you may barely have enough time to call me. So, it's kind of like when they were little, you might have said, oh, I can't wait till they grow up. But now, I wish I could go back for a day when they were all 2, 4, and 6 in the bed with me reading stories, and then we'd all fall asleep and have an afternoon nap. Like, I cherish those days, and they can't remember them because they're too young. So I'm just I'm not seeing anything in the chat to ask about, but back to the point. 2 things. 1, if you are the person with a mental illness and you want to find someone, to meet someone, you are better. This is like hindsight 2020 for me. You are better to learn about your illness, about how you tick. If you get a headache and I get a headache, it might be very different, okay? That might be a silly example, but what I'm trying to say is you can't say like me, I have bipolar depression, and just, be able to say, just look at a book and that's what it is. No, how you have lived, what you've gone through will affect your illness and how you interpret it. I learned something in my book, Bipolar Not So Much, by Dr. James Phelps and Dr. Chris Aiken. And I did not know this till this year, that people with bipolar interpret facial expressions always as angry. So you can imagine if I interpret everyone being mad at me all the time, I might be defensive. And so that's my job, to understand how I interact with my illness. You should really get to know yourself. There's the illness, and then there's who you are as a person. So, what do you like to do? How many kids do you want? Do you want any kids? Are you good with money? Have you got a lot of debt because you're bipolar and you know, one of the symptoms of bipolar is having mania, and in times of not being rational, racking up the credit card debt, doing doing things that were just not rational. That's the better word. And I apologize that I almost said the word crazy, but I mean, to me, the word crazy means doing things that I wasn't aware that I was doing in mania. And and to try to get well, being in a relationship is hard work. So if you think it's hard work managing your illness, be sure that you can have someone in your life in a romantic sense. And do not expect that people will be understanding. They'll just see how funny you are, how inventive you are, how interesting you are, how inventive, maybe I just said that, how creative. And I'm self-taught guitar. I've toured went on some small tours when I was a musician. Anything I want to do, I just do it, and people might admire that and just begin totally blinded because they don't live with you on how extreme your emotions can be. And I've seen a friend who's schizophrenic is not taking their medication. That's very scary to see. So if you haven't found a way to be stable, really ask yourself and do some self-awareness. Self-awareness is a really important word, 2 words, because you need to be able to think before you do. If you're not well, you can't do that because you've not taken the efforts to get the right medications, to exercise, to advocate for yourself with the doctors. If you just throw your hands in the air and go, you know what, nothing works, doesn't matter, and I'm fine right now. Well, there are times where you can be fine, but it's an illness. It's not convenient. I say illness is not convenient. So it's unfair to anyone around you that you go into a relationship with them if you haven't done the work on yourself. And you may think, that's not fair. I have an illness. You know what? It's actually, if you want to look at it as a blessing in some respect, because you are so self-aware, you are so intelligent. Like, look up all the people in the world who've had a mental illness, a chronic and severe mental illness like I have, and look at how they've been able to change the world when they have done the work to be well. So that's what I have to say to you, the person who wants to have someone in your life, who wants to date. And I think some of those things I just said could go to for anyone even without an illness. If like, know yourself, know what you want, know your triggers. You know what? My grandma became a widow close to 50. She never dated, she never remarried. She's been single for over 45 years, I think. She just knew she just didn't want and to deal with, like, my grandpa was it, and she didn't want to have anyone else in her life. He was the love of her life, and that was it. If that's you, it's fine to be alone. And I said recently in a post, I have been in a relationship where I felt alone. It is better to be alone than to be in a relationship and feel alone. And that goes for someone who with an illness or without an illness. Because if you have an illness and the person, you both didn't like realize or figure out that they just aren't up for dealing with your symptoms, you get married, you can be very alone because they get fed up with the illness. They're like, there it goes again. They get a cop out. They get to say that was my illness, And that's also something to do the work on yourself, because then you can get ahead of, I've, like for me, I know if I work too many hours, I become less patient. I become hypomanic, which would to you look like I'm very productive, but I'm actually going faster than I should be in everything that I'm doing, which will lead to exhaustion, which will lead to being on the couch, which will lead to me not being able to contribute to anything in the family, which is not fair. So that's a self-awareness I have. To the person who, wants to date someone and find someone hilarious and charming and, just like, this is my dream person, you also have a responsibility to do self-awareness. And, if you like somebody, have a real conversation. Like, okay, tell me about yourself, some of the things that you struggle with. Is there anything you'd like to share with me? Because the reason for me personally dating someone is to find out if I want to be with that person. Not just so I have someone to go out with on a Friday night, someone to talk to. So, real questions. What are you looking for in a person? What do you struggle with? It isn't easy for me to say, but when I married my high school sweetheart, and then when our relationship ended, I asked him, why did you want to be with me? And because we are total opposite, but really total opposite. He just said, I wanted you in my life. But don't pretend. You should not pretend to be something you're not, because I can only make a decision to date you and then have a life with someone based on the old-fashioned word courting experience. But if you're putting on a show, then I make a decision based on only what I'm experiencing. And then you're invested, and it's almost, you feel like it's too late. Before marriage, it's never too late to say, this isn't what I thought it was. Because I will tell you, that's way better than divorce. And this is some real talk. And this is not easy for me to do. But in romantic relationships, don't pretend in the dating stages to be something that you're not. Science has proven that dating someone, if you become infatuated or whatever, the brain has so much endorphins, they equate it to being on cocaine, which I've never done. And I've never done any drugs. I think I've said it before. My daddy said, you come home drunk or high, you don't want to know how I'm going to string your butt up. So, but they've equated it, the endorphins of meeting someone that you are falling for the first 90 days to being like, they can do no wrong. But after that, pay attention to the things that bother you. So I've spoken to about if you're at home with that person, especially if that person has an illness, have a plan of how to treat each other. I find that we are pretty predictable human beings, and we're pretty habitual, and it's not probably a big surprise to your partner what you're gonna do each day, and they probably know what ticks you off. And so just kindness. And I'm gonna say it every video, a thought is not a fact. Just because you think it doesn't make it true. And if you make a thought a fact and react to the thought that it isn't even true, you can cause fighting and chaos that is unneeded. So another really good book I'm gonna draw from here is because we're living together nonstop, is a book called, I've referred to it, Who's Pushing Your Buttons, Handling the Difficult People in Your Life, and by Dr. John Townsend. I really respect him. And so first page, what's the introduction? It says, have buttons, will push. Let's begin with a little reality check. Are you in a relationship with someone that often results in you feeling significant amounts of the following? Frustration, helplessness, fear, alienation and isolation, anxiety, out of control, unloved, guilt, confusion, anger. This is not a complete list by any means, but if you find yourself here, it may convey that something in this relationship causes significant problems for you and perhaps for others as well. It is as if that aspects of that person's behaviors, words, or attitudes have the power and capacity to change your mood, your happiness, and even your quality of life. It could certainly be that these reactions are more about you than the other person. This is always something to check out. For example, by seeing if safe and sane people have similar reactions to this person, or by asking others for feedback about your own style of relating. But if it is true that the person is, in objective reality, doing lots of crazy making or even destructive things in your relationship, you may be dealing with a button pusher. A button pusher is someone who causes many negative reactions in his or her relationships. There are two parts to the equation. The button pusher's crazy making tendencies plus your own vulnerabilities to him or her. So it says this book is designed to help give you tools to not only understand your situation, but also to develop an approach to the relationship to both influence that difficult person to change in positive ways and help you change and grow also. So, on page 41, I turned to, says, to the extent you avoid owning your part in the problem, you will continue in the problem. If your approach, attitude, or behavior to the button pusher isn't healthy, you must deal with it and change it. If there is an aspect in your relationship with your button pusher in which you are making a contribution, you will hamper any growth and change by not attending to it. In other words, if you see yourself as 100% innocent and your button pusher as 100% at fault in every aspect of the issue, you are paralyzing yourself from changing things. So I'm going to end with that at 37 minutes and 30 seconds. That when I went to Al-Anon, when I was in a relationship with someone who was an alcoholic, and one of the precepts is in the 12 steps for someone who is the codependent, that's me. When one person is sane, the whole household gets better. That's a paraphrase. So, the button pusher can't do their behavior without you doing the dance with them. Okay? So, next week, I'll get more into it. Maybe between now and then, there's some homework. Check out the book by Dr. John Townsend. I'll show you the cover again. Okay, who's pushing your buttons? It's eye-opening. So as you live in quarantine, your kids might be your button pusher. Your husband or wife might be pushing your buttons because you can't get away from each other. You know? Whatever, you have to learn new habits, new behaviors, self-awareness, and look up, love, and respect. It's mind-blowing if I say to Joe, I really respect you for what you did. Thank you so much. Okay? Just try it. It won't hurt. Because if what you're doing now, all you're doing is bickering, then you're on the crazy cycle. Because once the woman stops respecting, the man stops loving, or the man stops loving, the woman stops respecting, and the doctor calls it the wheel of crazy. And one of you's got to be mature enough to jump off the hamster wheel and go look and find things to respect them, and your life will get better. And in the book you will read, there are couples that have said, well, he doesn't deserve my respect because he's such a jerk. Well, do you want your relationship to work? Or do you want to just be right? My friend said in a Trinidadian accent, which I'm not even going to try, but she said, do you want to be dead, want to be right, and have no friends? So, I'm Stephanie Brown. I hope you've gotten some, good stuff out of this. Self-awareness. Fall in love. But while you're falling in love, try to pull back. I even said to the person I was falling for, I need to not see you for 2 weeks. Like, I need to take a step back. Like, I need to think this through. And we still didn't make it because he pretended to be something that he wasn't. And when we were a couple, let all his hair down, and that was so painful because I had to end it. So it's never too late to do what's right, because hanging on to something just because when you're dating because it's comfortable will only be a life of misery, because you're not on the same page. Another thing I said to this person was, this is what I believe in, you know, how many kids, how do you handle money, and right down to faith. If you're not on the same page in your faith, you'll fight about that too. I want to read this book, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. It was written, I think, 15 years ago, and it's called How I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And it's all about up front, right in the beginning, getting real with this person that you're attracted to, but asking the hard questions. So you're not only signing a marriage license, then you're signing divorce papers. That's not what you want. That's not what you want. So, and I will say that if you're not married but you're living together, the heartbreak of breaking up will not be any easier, because you're connected to that person. So have a good Saturday. I'm gonna go. There's my honky tonk coming out. I am going to go and do something fun. Thank you, Ranny. God bless you too. Please share this with someone. Share my page. Every week you're gonna get some real meat and potatoes. I said that because I grew up on a farm area, and it's just a phrase I use for, like, you're gonna get some real talk. And I don't want you to fall into the traps that I have fallen into. Don't not listen to your gut. And when you're driving up to a stop sign, you stop, because that's the law. If you're with someone and you notice, wait a second, they're starting to drink a lot, like, wake up. If you are ignoring that they're getting drunk all the time, if you're ignoring that they have that they're an alcoholic, don't be delusional. You will not. It will be just awful. If one of you's an introvert and hates being out in public, and one of you's an extrovert, like, talk about that, because I went out so much on my own that people thought I was single. Like, don't ignore the signs that you're not compatible. It's not terrible that you're not. Your person is out there. Or maybe you're like my grandma and they're just not, because you're happy that you're by yourself and you have your habits and all that stuff, and you do what you want, when you want, how you want, because that's what it is when you're alone. You can. You don't have to answer to anybody. It's not a sin to be alone. So, anyways, happy Saturday. Bye, everybody. I look forward to hearing from you, Ranny. Remember,